Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 38th and best episode of the Hashcast. And as always, I have a guest way cooler and way more interesting than myself. And today, I have a special treat. It's Hunter Pearson. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. I don't know that you can necessarily say that and be honest on this episode. I appreciate it, but I
Hey,
definitely think in this case you're cooler. I know it's a pitch, but you're definitely cooler than I am.
nah,
Uh,
we'll get into that this episode. We'll ask the audience at the end of the episode. I'm sure it went out. So if you're listening to this and you are not following my Twitter and you're wondering like, hey, who is Hunter Pearson? I might not have heard of that name. Could be because it is a Community Superstar episode where I like to highlight some people about from the community, not necessarily mine, but just internet communities in general that I think should deserve the spotlight. Because I always shill here for being better and like making communities in the gaming industry better, and I think I can only do that by highlighting the people that really put effort and make everything better. So we are here, episode 2 of Community Superstars. So we'll get right into it and see who you are. So Hunter, without giving away your superhero identity, who are you and what is it that you do day to day, and what is it that makes you such a wonderful human being?
my name's Hunter Pearson. As a profession, I work as a manager of human resource information systems at a system of hospitals here in Central Virginia, is where I live. Um, I will try and spare people the terror. I mean, it just is. I like what I do,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think a lot of people like hearing what I do. I think when people hear human resources, they think, oh, you got to deal with, Tom's been stealing Betty's sandwiches out of the refrigerator again, or it's like, oh, you got to sit with, people who are getting fired all the time. I am not that side of HR. Mine is a lot closer to information technology and even some finance. And I get to do, because I am an artist, I kind of on the side, I get to do some marketing and graphic design and stuff. So I do that. And I think I've only had to be involved in people losing their jobs maybe once or twice in my in my entire life. Excuse me.
That's okay.
So,
That also means you must be involved in getting people work, because that also goes
mm,
to HR. So, um,
yeah, I don't really do as much recruiting either in HR. I definitely help our recruiters out a lot, but they would come to me if they were having problems with specifically like our applicant tracking system. Again, I'm not going to go into the details of that. Mostly why I'm here on the show is because I'm a gamer dad. I have 3 boys. I really love creative people and content creators, movies and games and stuff. And I got involved in, a few communities, this one included, where I met some of the absolute best people. And so I've done some things for people in the community, artistic wise, but mostly I just like following and trying to be as supportive as possible.
yeah, and you have it.
So,
Like for me personally, like you are one of my earliest supporters, like in everything that you do. So I appreciate that. But I have a wild appreciation for people who who support. Like it sounds strange, but it's a different landscape that we're in nowadays. Because in the days of yore, there was a lot of content out there, and it was often sponsored by advertising and big companies behind some of the content creators. And now we're shifting to a model where even the smallest content creators can be profitable because people are just willing to support them either by sharing information or now through Patreon, where you can literally help pay for the show. Do you remember when that came up, Patreon, for the first time? Because I think I heard it for the first time when, not when Easy Allies came up, because I knew about it a little sooner, but it's relatively new that we decided, like, you know what, I spent $20 a month on coffee, I can throw $5 at a content creator.
yeah, mine was definitely when Easy Allies came around. That
Mm-hmm.
was, because I mean back in the day, we're older gamers. I think we might be right at about the same age.
Probably, yeah.
But growing up, it's so funny to have watched how this has progressed throughout the years. I mean, like really, this used to just be like magazines you would get.
Yeah.
Like if you go back far enough, you just were getting magazines, and that's where you got the content creator stuff. And then it was really just like a couple of places. I mean, it almost just entirely IGN if you were looking for news and talk shows and things like that. I can't remember a lot of other ones other than IGN and game trailers to a certain extent. But I always just gravitated towards game trailers and the people who work there. And even in the last part, I just thought that group was so amazing. And I was like most people, I'm very depressed when they shut down.
Yeah.
And I still had that need to hear their voices and to know what they were up to. So I wasn't even active on Twitter until then, because I was like, well, these people probably have Twitter accounts. I'm just going to go see what they're up to on Twitter. And that's when that news broke that they were starting their own thing and going through Patreon. I was like, well, I don't know what Patreon is, but I'll go check it out.
Yeah.
And so I went on, I found them. I was like, oh, this is great. And the thing I loved about that was that Patreon really forces you into more of a community. Like it's that business model and the framework of it all, unlike game trailers where I'm like, well, I'm not really going to get that involved with them, because for the most part it's just advertising that's paying their salaries. And I don't really have to play a part in that. But on Patreon, it's like, no, these people can only exist if people like me are willing to kind of help lift them up. And so that's definitely how I discovered Patreon. It's I think it's a good tool.
Yeah.
It can be misused, but I think it's a good tool.
Yeah. And also, it's just a sign out for the younger listeners. A magazine is a stack of paper with pictures printed in. It's been a while.
People do not realize what it was like living in the days of the magazine, because it was like the internet, even in general. If you had a problem, and quite often I did, in a game that you would get stuck. People get stuck in games today, and they're just like, figure it out.
Yeah.
But when you were stuck back then, you had, like, depending on when you got stuck, maybe a full month to wait for some guide to come out to help you through some section of like a Zelda game, and it was always it just was a different animal playing games back then than it is now.
And it's the worst. Like I'm gonna like dig into how old we are for a second, because like these magazines, you have to imagine, these were like, in Holland at least, they were like $10-12 sometimes, because they were imported as well. So then you got all your game news through a magazine that was probably already a month late by the time I got them in the Netherlands. Had to pay $12 just for 30 pages if you're lucky.
Yeah.
We also had a Nintendo helpline. I'm not sure if you ever called those guys.
No, I wasn't allowed. That was off limits. Yeah. That was not something I was like, occupy. The phone time in a big family was too important for me to be on there talking video games.
Yeah. I called those guys a couple of times, and I back then when I was a kid, that sounded like a dream job to me, because it was just a dude sitting there, probably in an office, not even a real office. I doubt it was even a real office. And he was like, "So where are you at?" And then I don't know how they had the information. It was different times, man. It was different times.
They just had like a filing system. They were, looking through files. Yeah. And by the way, for other people who are confused by the phone time concept I just mentioned, everybody in the family didn't used to have their own phone. Yeah. Like there was just like one, maybe two, that everybody had to like share, and it would be in like a centralized place in the house.
Yeah.
And so if somebody was just hogging it, everybody else, hated that person that day. So,
because you could not receive a call. You would get the busy tone, which is a tone I haven't heard in the last 8 years. I think.
I will tell you this though, I'm very much a nostalgic, sentimental type person. So I do, and I still get Game Informer and stuff, but I do miss like that tangible like magazine feeling, and like like there was a lot of excitement around, okay, this is that day in the month when the thing shows up in the mail, and you'd look a couple of days and it wouldn't be there, and you'd be like, oh, it's gonna be here any day, and then you'd open it and it would be there, and it was almost like its own like mini like Christmas celebration
Yeah.
because you were like, okay, I know what I'm doing the next hour. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna be flipping through this and like Game Pro and Electronic Gaming Monthly. I definitely was heavy into those as a
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, I think I had one subscription, but the rest I had to buy. I had to go to the store and buy one of the English magazines. And like I said, they were super expensive. And I have a terrible confession to make. Because this is before the time barcodes were actually connected to like a computer. So what I
Right.
would do is I would take like a cheap magazine, take the sticker off, and then put it on one of my expensive magazines.
Oh
And
man.
then I get like $3 off of my magazine until I got caught once, and then I could never ever step into that store ever again.
You see, if you were telling a real person in HR
Yeah,
that right now, they'd be disappointed in you. But
yeah,
yeah, I can't say that I'm above that. I just didn't think of it at the time.
yeah. I was also 7, so
Yeah.
I think there should be a time where that just moves on in your life. But don't tweet it. That's for sure, because that will use against
Yeah.
you for the rest of your life. So yeah, no, it was interesting times. But now, like there was no community when you had magazines. Like everybody was their own reader. You could perhaps send in a letter.
Yeah.
But then you would never hear from that again if unless it was printed in a magazine.
I sent them in. I probably sent 100 letters in to magazines, and I don't think one of them ever made it
No.
through. I mean, they got so many of them, and mine were, admittedly, they were probably all really stupid questions at the time.
That you have to wait 6 weeks for it to arrive.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, maybe this time, but
Yeah,
no,
no,
fine.
those
It's
were
fine.
good
Not a
times.
community for sure.
Yeah, but it would always interest me, Hunter, is like there's a lot of people who play video games. There's a lot of people who are interested in video games, but not everybody becomes involved. In video games, like not everybody creates a Twitter account and follows the news and follows content creators. Like, what made you want to be a part of that? Because it's easy to not be in a community and still get all the content and even the games and watch the videos, but like
Sure.
complete anonymously. What made you step up? Because you pop up. Like,
Um,
I see you in the community.
sure. Let me see how I can answer this. I apologize. People who know me know that I am a fairly long-winded, talkative person.
That makes
And
for
my
great
wife,
guests.
my wife would certainly tell you that. Hi, sweetie. She's gonna watch this later. Uh, she's not a gamer, so there is a household struggle sometimes over that when I'm up at like 2 a.m. and she's like, "Are you coming to bed?" And I'm just like, "Well, I can't let the entire team down here, you know. Like I can just leave."
I have a story for you
Uh,
later. Yeah.
yeah. So let me try and tell you where I get to with that. So, and I'm going to go back. So I was a studio art major with an art history minor. Um, art was everything to me, and that's certainly probably what I would still call my passion. But my brain is weird in that I discovered after college, when I went into freelance graphic design, that's what I was going to try and do. That I could not handle, and I'm sure a lot of artists can kind of relate to this or they struggle with this, but I could not handle a variable income lifestyle. So not knowing exactly what I was going to be making in my next check, or trying to stretch a check out or payment out over a certain period of time, and just even if I was going to make more doing that than something that was a fixed income that I just knew every single time what I was getting paid, uh, I I would have struggled with it. It would have stressed me out to no end. And once I discovered that about myself, I realized that um, in a lot of like the art world, that's the way things are. You can certainly get some fixed income jobs in art, but a lot of them are hard to get, and a lot of them don't really afford you the creative process that you want to have. It's not, you don't have the ownership over it. And my brain struggles. It battles between, wanting complete ownership over something, but also wanting the absolute sustainable certainty of what I'm going to be able to provide
Yeah.
to myself and to my family. So I struggle with that, but the art has always been a passion of mine, and so you know, somehow it's so funny. Like somehow end up in HR from the studio art major. Uh, and I'm not going to draw that line for everybody, but what I will say is that one of my friends who's extremely funny. He once told me that when you graduate from places, people give you that book, "Oh, the places you go." You ever see that, like from Dr. Seuss? "Oh, the places you'll
Yeah.
go." People will know that. So it's a book that you always get. And he was like, that may be true for some people, but for most people, that book should be called, "Oh, the places you end up."
Yeah.
Which was definitely
Yeah.
true for me. I mean, I really like my job. I like what I do. It certainly is not my passion, but it's sustainable, and there's not a whole lot of demand for it, and it's a certain skill, and so I know that it's somebody I can keep. But the Patreon and the Twitter and being involved in the community
Mhm.
gives me a place to be involved in what I really am passionate about,
Mhm.
which is the art. And in this specific community, in the community I met through Easy Allies, and through you and some of the other people that you've had on your show,
Mhm.
honestly, because that's one of the things I love about your show is that you introduce people that I don't think I'd otherwise have known
Mhm.
existed. And that's great. And so it allows me to get involved in that without having to really worry about the financial aspect of it
Mhm.
or anything else other than just the art. And so I've done some art for people in the community,
Yeah.
and it brings me joy to see it every time I see them using it, um, or like it pops back up. I like that, and I
Mhm.
like seeing everybody else's. So that's why I think I'm so involved in it,
Yeah.
is because I need that art outlet
Yeah.
myself.
That's interesting because it kind of reflects my reason why I started doing what I do. Because I also had a very corporate heavy office desk suit and tie job for most of my life. But I have a creative background too. Like I have a bachelor in communications and marketing, but I didn't get to work in that field. Like I worked very shortly in that field, and then I moved to Canada because I met the love of my life. Hey, baby, I know you're gonna watch this later. um, but that kind of had no creativity. So I started doing like shenanigans on the side as well, and that just turned out to be such a great combination to have that creative itch scratched. But
Yeah.
it all started for me as exactly the same, like be part of the community. Like I wish I had artistic skills. Although after a year of drawing a Disney princess, I think I'm
Yeah, I was about to
yeah.
say. I mean,
Yeah,
you definitely have earned
yeah,
the right to call yourself an artist at
uh,
this point. That was quite a process to watch. I,
yeah,
I honestly still feel proud of you personally for watching all of that. And
thank you.
I felt guilty. Like you were drawing something every day,
Yeah.
and I couldn't even keep up with like telling you it was good every day.
Well, it wasn't
Like
always
it
good.
is. I mean, I did the Inktober thing. I
Mhm,
think I made it through like 7 days
mhm,
before. And you're married. You have children. Like sometimes it's unpredictable what might come
mhm.
up. To be able to do that and find time to do that, even if you had to rush through it once, but you still did it, and that's astounding. Okay, so I'll
Yeah,
stop. I'll
no,
stop kicking the gas.
it was quite a journey. But like I asked me to draw Anna today, and I couldn't do it. So that's why I feel like,
Ah,
but
okay.
we'll see.
I'm excited to see what you decide to do next because
Yeah,
I think not just I don't speak for myself for sure, but a lot of people I think really enjoy kind of watching your journey through that. It
yeah.
was it was it was great. It's definitely motivational. So
That's good. But yeah, so creative itch. Consider it scratched.
all right,
But do you ever? Because like you are a very creative guy, I think you are very knowledgeable about the stuff we talk about when we with Channel 9 either.
hmm
If it's games, I also almost very much enjoy your political insights for US at least.
yeah.
Do you ever played around with becoming a content creator yourself?
Um,
As if that's a
yeah, I mean,
title, even.
I
Yeah.
no, I do think that is a title. Not really, and for the reasons I mentioned before, I just don't think that I would turn into a mess.
Yeah.
One of the beautiful things about my job is that, and just being an artist in general, is that, uh, and I'm not trying to use this as like an idea for anybody else
Mhm.
to take, but like I got asked at work today to design an invitation
Hmm.
for a retirement party for one of our executives. So one
Hmm.
of our executives is retiring. They're going to have a big party. They're going to send out a bunch of invitations. And so they come to me for that. They just say, "Hey, this is kind of what we're looking for. You know, do you mind?" So that gives me a, project to do.
Hmm.
It's, you know, I mean, they use me for a couple of reasons. I think they do think that it'll turn out nice, but
Yeah.
also they get it for basically what they're already paying me.
Yeah.
But then I get to do that, and I also I don't have a lot of money to give back to uh, a lot of the charities I want,
Hmm.
especially some of the local ones. But I have a number of charities here in town who get me to do things like that,
Hmm.
either like event brochures,
Hmm.
invitations to like galas, just a host of different projects that I get that I'll just do for free because that's my way to help them out.
Hmm.
And then I get to feel like I'm helping and doing art and again scratching that itch
Hmm.
without having to without having to worry about the rest of the other stuff about like where like how am I going to get pull-up diapers for my 3-year-old,
Yeah.
and are we going to be able to sign up my son for basketball, like that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. That just I can budget and still do the art at the same time
Hmm.
without having to like be crazy about it, and I
Yeah.
would get crazy about it. So
Yeah, that's true. It's hard not to sometimes, but that is like it is a lot of time and effort. But like you said, there's so many ways you can participate in
right.
in content or anything you like. But speaking of content, like there is a lot out there. Like there's literally something for everybody. What is it that draws you to the content that you currently follow? Because we talked about Easy Allies a bit. I know you're just like me, a fan of movies with Mikey, which is one of my
Oh, I
favorite
love movies,
things.
Mike. Yeah, it's definitely
You
one
even
of my
follow me. Like, what is it that draws you to a certain type of content?
um I'm not always great at analogies. I'm gonna try and use an analogy here. So um again, like if you even go back 5-10 years, uh, the kind of content creators, I guess you could say, there was you hear that expression like the cream rises to the top,
Hmm.
and I if you like back then, like you had like a really small cup of tea, basically.
Hmm.
Like there wasn't like a lot of opportunity for content creators to get noticed. You
Hmm.
had to kind of either know somebody. It was a networking thing. You had to like
Yeah.
get into the right place, and then you had to kind of work your way through that, and then you might get noticed, and then you were in like this the pool of people that could get recognized. But
Hmm.
now that teacup is like ginormous. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like infinite with social media. The cream that rises to the top now. If we have any problem with that, it's that um, too much rises. It's
Yeah.
like now you have like you're surrounded by hundreds of people that you find amazing.
Hmm.
And that's a real challenge just from the community side
Yeah.
of it, to try and pick and choose, because you only have a limited amount that you can help to support
Hmm.
people. And so, excuse me. So when you're trying to decide that, it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. And I have supported some people and then stopped, and it wasn't because they weren't great.
Hmm.
It just was that like you know, like you have to managing that as a consumer is definitely a lot more challenging. Like I wish I could give money to so many other people.
Yeah.
I can't.
No.
I guess I choose to give it to Easy Allies because they were the ones who drew me to it
Hmm.
in the first place, and I just always want them to exist because I think that they're just such a great
Hmm.
group who do such creative and amazing things. But I give it to a few other people like that, like Mikey, who also I just find to be inspiring, and
Yeah.
I love his work so much. I just want to make sure that that is always existing. And I guess I support you specifically
Hmm.
just because um, I think you have like a very specific type of skill set and personality that is right for this kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I just don't think it's going to go anywhere but up.
Yeah.
And so I just want to see if I can help make sure that that happens. Maybe selfishly, a long way down the road, I'll go like, "Oh, I was one of the first to support this guy."
You're on the show.
Yeah, and this was unexpected. By the way, anybody he asked me yesterday to do this. I'm really surprised I was even able to get this set up to work. But yeah, I just think that you have that and your ability to network and get interesting people on the show and identify them, and then also you're just a really nice guy. You're very genuine, and I think that that brand is sorely needed in the world of content creators. I mean, most of them are just a dime a dozen. Like their community evolves just based on whatever is getting them more in the community, and I don't think that that's as sustainable as building a genuine community that grows naturally and maybe slowly but naturally. So,
well, if you're gonna talk like that, you get to be on the show every week, Hunter.
Well, I do. I really enjoy watching it. I'm very busy. I actually haven't caught up on the last, I think, two, maybe three. I think the last one I was able actually to watch was Steven Spawn, who again, that's the type of person that like I wanna hear more from that guy. Everything he does just is so inspiring and amazing, and that's the type of people you bring on. Just people who are genuinely good, amazing people. So
he's gonna be on the show with my friends at the Super Deformed Gamecast if he hasn't been already. I think
nice.
He's gonna be soon, maybe this week that they're gonna have him on.
Another good group because that's another one of those there's so much cream. I would love to also be able to support them, but then I'd have to take money out of your pot. And I don't want to do that.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, too bad.
Yeah, too bad. No, that's good.
I do love all of them, and I do watch them. I wish I could support them. Maybe I can down the road.
Yeah, well, they need to get their stuff together. I've told them like many times, like get your Patreon, get your production values up, man. You have the thing. You can't just go to Greg Miller and then not have a Patreon after. It's just
that was pretty awesome, man. That was pretty awesome. I thought that was really cool, and I do appreciate people like Greg Miller who do reach out to help people, knowing that they were in that position at some point. So that's really cool, though.
Yeah, that is good. That is very nice to hear. First of all, and I think that's what makes a community great, to have people like that who are, like I said, pushing content creators forward. Because we've also seen the opposite, where a community can kind of turn on, not turn on the creator, but like tries to control it too much.
There's so much of that. That's one of the things that just bothers me to no end. I would say that's really, I may have mentioned it earlier or kind of had some foreshadowing that there is another side of Patreon, and that is absolutely it, is the side of Patreon that doesn't look at it like I look at it, which is I don't really like describing it as like buying a ticket or something like that. Actually, I'm gonna tell you a brief little story about what I think Patreon is like, just from a business model and how it should be treated.
Yeah.
So here in Virginia, in Richmond, Virginia, where I live, we have just a ton of really, really amazing tacky Christmas lights. It's like a Christmas light mecca. And there's a couple of houses 10 miles away from me or so that they just put up the most, sorry, somebody's at the door. They just put up the most amazing Christmas display. Like, I can't even describe it to you. I mean, it is like Clark Griswold's house times 100. Like, their entire yard is lit up. They have like Santa on an airplane, like flying across the yard. They have 40-foot trees lit up the whole way. So they just have all these Christmas lights, and you can just drive your car over there and there will be mobs of people outside looking at the lights. And there's not somebody over there, saying like, you want to look at the lights, you got to, pay us money. But what they do is they set up a little hot chocolate stand and a little donation box, and you say, this is a lot of work. If you want to donate some money, we appreciate it. And I'm sure they probably make a killing. We always donate every time we go over there, because it's like with Patreon and like content creators, I know that it's just a ton of work that they have to put into building their content. And so that's like me going over to the donation box and saying, I appreciate it. I recognize what you do. And that's like the goodwill nature
Yeah.
of Patreon. Too many people look at it like it's like some kind of investment. Like
Hmm.
there's somehow like stakeholders now
Yeah.
in the whole deal where and with the Easy Allies, I think the easiest example to point out for them is that you've got all of these people who give the money on Patreon who will kick and scream about bringing the final Bossman back. And most people there know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love the final Bossman. And if he decided to bring it back, I'd be like, that's fantastic. But if he doesn't want to, if they don't want to go that route, then that's up to them. Again, just because I give them money doesn't mean that I'm entitled to control their creative process. And too many people think that that's the relationship. And I just don't. I don't even know really. Sometimes I don't even really know how I feel about the tier
Yeah.
idea. The tier idea
Yeah.
kind of, I'm conflicted about that. I understand the need for it somewhat, but sometimes I'm like, okay, unless you're like straight up a sponsor, like you're getting,
Mhm.
because there's a purpose for that,
Yeah.
obviously. If there's like a straight up sponsor, you're getting your name read out on a show or your business, like that's a transaction.
Yeah.
But if it's more like these tiers, then I'm not sure how I don't know. That probably does help boost what people give, but sometimes I feel like people, again, if you give like $50 as opposed to 20, it's like all of a sudden they're supposed to listen to you more, and
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I like have a couple tiers because Patreon tells you to put some tiers,
Mm.
but it's very strange. I think it becomes more important when you do have to have that filter, otherwise you get too much input. But it is
Right.
weird. But just for people that were watching, and you couldn't see it because it's a different camera, there was light coming from my window, and it like the beam just struck right over the lens of my camera, and
Oh no.
it looked like I was getting beamed up. It was very
Oh.
funny. But yeah, I
Uh,
looked a little distracted, but I was listening. I think you're right. Like how that works with Patreon, and we also have a Christmas lights street here in the area where people just drive to for like 45 minutes just to see the houses.
yeah.
It's nuts. But I think a part of the problem with Patreon and content creators is that they started off on the wrong foot. Because I hear often when people start a Patreon, they have this idea where like, okay, we work for you now, and like and they call people producers on like certain tier levels, and I think that is a mistake in a way because that gives people the idea that they get input on the content, and I don't think that is what you want to do as a large content creator.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, so that's why I refrain from using such language because like I can't even do it myself, right? Imagine having 200 captains on the ship. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting dynamic where support can be weaponized almost.
Mm.
Hey, I didn't like what you did, so I'm gonna withdraw my support now as a form of punishment. It's very strange. It does create a strange dynamic. Luckily, not for me, because I haven't had that issue yet, because I have yet not said anything to piss anyone off. But, the night's still young.
Yeah, but um, I just, the way I look at it is like with Patreon these days and with communities, like your community has almost become a big part of what your brand is,
Mm-hmm.
So like the way people are always being held accountable for like what people are saying or doing in their
Mm-hmm.
communities. That's just true
Yeah.
today. And I think more content creators should pay more attention to, because it's such a big part of their brand. Um, I don't want them to like necessarily police it,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, there are ways I think to kind of steer it in the right direction.
Yeah.
And if I were a content creator, really no matter what the size was or the amount that somebody was giving
Mm-hmm.
me, uh, if they were off brand, so to speak, if they were saying something that were like just terribly offensive
Mm-hmm.
or just really trying to piss everybody else off for no reason, then like the threat of losing whatever they were giving
Mm-hmm.
me would be nothing. I'd be like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's your money is not as important to me as being
Yeah.
decent to other people
Yeah.
is. So if that's, again, that's brand. I think a lot of content creators run into a problem where they they have like two sides of their own community,
Yeah.
like just totally headbutting each other. It's kind of amazing. And
Yeah.
even now, Easy Allies to some extent has some of that going
Hmm.
on, and which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Most people are nice though.
Yeah. Most of them. Yeah, and I think that's if you do this for a living, like I don't do this for a living. Uh, like it must be hard to balance saying, okay, I'm gonna keep up with this level of bullshit because I also need to pay the bills. Uh, because for otherwise I was like, okay, you're out of my community, you're out of my community. Like, you can't really
Yeah,
do that, and that must
yeah,
be that is tough. And I think the bigger you get, the tougher that gets. But it does create a very interesting dynamic Patreon and getting paid for what you do at least. But
yeah.
I talked. We talked about a couple of things about content creators, how you find some of the people, and how some accountability is important. Like you have 3 kids, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
when you
Three
look
three
at
boys.
three
A lot
boys,
of boys in a lot of boys in my family.
yeah,
I have 3 brothers myself. We're just all boys all the time. So
good times for your wife, dear Lord. But how do you disconnect if you have to, like the content creator from the content? Because there is content out there that's great, but then you find out about the person and it's terrible. Like I had that yesterday when Ronda Rousey was announced as Sonya Blade for Mortal Kombat. I was like, first of all, I love Mortal Kombat as a game. But I know she was slightly problematic in the past, so you kind of have to still make that disconnect between content and
oh,
creator. Um, but
yeah, see that's the funny thing about those kind of stories is that's usually when I'm learning about like something that somebody did.
yeah,
I didn't know much about Ronda
no,
Rousey other than she was an insanely good UFC fighter
hmm
for a long time and then lost, but I guess it's still kind of a I was
oh, she's an
you might
amazing
have said this.
athlete still. Yeah,
I saw somebody I think I saw somebody say it might have been you that they didn't understand why she was being used for voice acting. I
yeah,
understand like mocap.
hmm
Was that you?
yeah, that was me. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense to me because yeah, I mean you would want to you there are people who are far better choices for that kind of thing, and it's not like anybody would notice or cares
no,
that it's run around. It might even be more of a distraction. That's more
yeah,
of a creative decision for Mortal Kombat. Um, I don't know. That's such a big team.
yeah,
That's such a hard thing
yeah,
to like say. Well, because of this one thing, I'm just going to basically say no to all of these people who I don't know who
hmm
put in so much effort to make this work.
yeah,
Maybe just don't play Sonya if that
yeah,
bothers you. I don't
yeah.
know.
No, I never
Uh,
know what it's gonna do. If it's a good character, you're gonna play it. Like, that's just how it works.
Sonya was never my choice.
Yeah,
Mortal Kombat is a franchise. Like I've lived through the whole thing.
yeah, yeah,
Like I was in 6th grade when the first one came out,
yeah.
and my life basically revolved around that game when I was in 6th and 7th
hmm
grade. So, um, but I don't even back then. Sonya wasn't my choice.
Yeah, well, but that's maybe too specific too. But what I'm trying to get is like sometimes you watch content and it's fun, but then the creators are slightly off. Like I keep a check on that stuff, even with my kids watch nowadays. Because my daughter, she's 4, she loves this YouTube channel. It's called Totally TV. I'm not sure if you've seen it. It's a bunch of
I haven't.
girls and a couple of guys, and they just dress up as Disney princesses and they go on adventures. It's pretty wholesome. But I was like, okay, she wants to watch this all the time, but I have no idea who these people are. And like, she's
Mhm.
getting 14 million views just on my daughter alone, so I want to see what kind of people those are. Like, do you ever check that and say, okay, hey, I love this
Oh,
podcast, but then all of a sudden I found out that this person is actually terrible. So, where do you draw the line between content creator
uh,
and content?
it yeah. Oh, the kid thing is like a whole nother
Oh, don't get me
animal.
started on YouTube Kids, man.
the,
Dear
the
Lord.
YouTube thing is when you have kids with YouTube, because it's, most of the time they're just using like the same account that I'm
Hmm.
using. So it's like building an algorithm based on
Oh,
like some of the trash that I probably watch
yeah.
on there, some documentary on like World War II and like trying to figure out, okay, so you watched a documentary on World War II and you watched Ryan's toy review, which I
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that
Yeah.
kind of my 4-year-old he loves Ryan's
Hmm.
toy review, which I think is the one that was like
Best paid kid
the
in the world.
the best paid, maybe even just the best paid
Yeah.
period. And I'm always left scratching my head, going like, this is just like garbage. It's not even good. It doesn't even look well produced, but yet my kid, and the
Yeah.
whole point of why it's so popular is because they get so glazed over. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I really feel, but I try and limit that
Hmm.
and have them do other things as much as I can. I don't want it to turn into a babysitter.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the kid thing is that's you you know you just you have to, when they're watching it, you just can't leave them alone with it really,
No.
or otherwise they're going to end up on some Grand Theft Auto mod where they were watching a very innocent Spider-Man like homemade cartoon, and now they're watching like a Grand Theft Auto where like
Yeah.
whatever they're doing, I
Yeah.
don't know.
YouTube's terrible, man. No, but YouTube algorithm. Yesterday, I was thinking about this myself. I was watching all the Mortal Kombat 11 news on my YouTube account, but at the same time, like in between, I was also looking up recipes for how to cook a tuna steak because I bought tuna steaks. And I was like, YouTube must be going like, okay, what kind of recipes are we gonna serve this man now?
Yeah, that's what you need to do though. You need to like incorporate some like hashtag cooks or
Yeah,
some show into that, because I
yeah,
know a lot of people would be interested in watching you make
yeah.
some of the things that you
And
post pictures of.
there is an episode where I make a big ass lasagna, and it was a filler episode because I was on
Oh,
vacation.
I remember that now.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. That's
it has 12 views, so it was fantastic. Uh, but
I'm sure it was probably good.
yeah, man, there's so much content I would like to do, but I just don't because time and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I try to
We
expand a little
also-
bit, just to get better at video editing and stuff, but it's fun. But
You're coming along though, and props to it was Robot Brush. Was that who?
yeah, he did the intro for me. Yeah,
Man, that's awesome work. I
yeah,
love that. Your intro
yeah.
is really amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's funny because I had Andrea on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she's a huge
Did watch
mentor
that
for
one.
me. She's a fantastic person, and so we did the show, and we had some midway in the show technical difficulties, and then after she goes like, okay, look, here's what you need to do, tack 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 tack, just do this better, frame this better, and she had like a ton of tips for me. I was like, okay, next episode, bam, new layout, everything better. So
Yeah.
it's just I'm so lucky to have that kind of support as well from my peers. But it's a good time. It's a good time. So
Yeah. Well, thanks, Andrea, for making our episode better. If you happen to
yes.
catch
Oh
one.
yeah, it looks so much better. Thanks to her now. But it is fun, and like I said, like I could only do this with the support from you and from other people. So that's great. Like we talked about content creators and what draws you in. What is and I sent you this question before, so you could give some thought, perhaps. But what is your
Oh,
favorite piece of content? Like what's like? Because I watch so much, but there is a couple of things that still stand out to me after
No,
like
I
years.
I have an answer right off the bat.
Yeah,
Like favorite piece of content
yeah,
all time.
hmm
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. My favorite bit of content ever created, and it'll be tough to ever top it because
hmm
it just combines everything that is joyful and
yeah.
perfect in this world, and
This
it is.
episode,
This is not my favorite
yeah,
piece of content. I'm sure I'll go back and watch this later and be like, "What are you even doing? What are you talking about?" But no, and I know a lot of people will also have this one and agree with it. It is the 8-minute segment of game trailers when they were doing the E3 coverage of the Sony press conference, and from when they announced
mm,
Final Final Fantasy VII remake
yeah,
up to the Shenmue drop,
yeah,
which, by the way,
yeah,
neither of which are even out. That was
yeah,
so long ago, and both of those games
yeah,
are still like, I think Shenmue actually has a release date
yeah,
and is clearly on its way.
yeah,
I haven't heard from the other one, but just that stretch
hmm
of, and again, uh, it's like they just kind of forgot that they were even creating
hmm
content. Like this was just them being like kids at heart and just great people, so entertaining to watch. and just getting everything that they ever wanted in this world delivered to them at once. And even the like Devolver Digital piece in the middle there that was kind of a little bit of a breather, but also a really cool part of the segment.
Yeah.
But it was like, okay, now we can calm down. It's like that's what you think,
Mm-hmm.
you know. It's like if there was ever a one up to a
Yeah.
Final Fantasy remake, Final Fantasy VII remake drop at a Sony press conference, it's having like Huber and Brad especially, you know, like grew up together. And again, this is like a childhood thing, like of just in front of a camera for all of us to enjoy. I've probably watched it. I'm embarrassed. I don't know how many. I've watched it so many times. Anytime I'm feeling down, honestly, that's kind of a go-to for me. I'm going to watch this. It's going to make me feel uplifted and just, you know, kind of carefree. So I love that. It's definitely my favorite piece of content.
Yeah, that is such a good answer, dear Lord. I do not have a. Now that you mention it, like, yeah, that's true. That is
It's
fantastic.
so good. It's so good. I mean, Bossman standing on the chair.
Yeah.
And Elise was there. I'm so happy he's doing so well, but I definitely miss seeing interact as much with this group. And she's like perfect in that. Like again, like it's like the cameras disappeared for them, and they just were having it like a genuine moment. So, and I don't know that will ever be topped. It would be tough because you'd have to have something like that. You know, it's almost like they've been trying to duplicate that moment again with other press conferences, and some of them have been pretty awesome. You know, like God of War dropped for them, and I think Resident Evil, both 7 and 2 were pretty fun, but nothing on that level.
No,
not like back to back. And that was the same press conference that they had already gotten the Last Guardian.
That was
announced.
a trifecta one.
That was a good press conference.
That was a stupid good press conference, dear Lord. But do you think like that? I think that moment is extremely special for those guys. But if you would never have seen or heard of Game Traders or those guys before, do you think it would have had the same impact, or is it because you are a part of that community and you know about these people, you know their passions, that it has an extra impact?
Oh yeah, I think it definitely helps. I mean, you know, some of my other favorite content from before was I always loved watching the what they call the first 15. I always thought that was such a great idea for a show. Where, you know, they would go, Huber and Boston would go pick out some just really super random game. Like I think my favorite one was their like Bad Boys 2. They did one with Bad Boys 2. It was just amazing. And then they would just goof off and play like a random game for 15 minutes and then like give you their thoughts on it. But they were never really serious. But things like that leading up to that really give you an idea of who they are and what their personalities are. So I mean, it still would have been a fantastic thing to watch had I not known who they were. But I think that's true with any content creator. You know, if you've built up, even if they have no idea who you are, if you've stuck with them long enough and kind of just gotten to know their personalities, then when you see something that you've watched them, you know, bicker about, pine for, complain about for years and years and years, you know, basically pretending like something was never going to happen, and then to have two things that were never going to happen in an 8-minute stretch. Again, you'd have to have like that same kind of setup, and I don't know that it will ever exist again.
No,
but I wouldn't have been as into it if I didn't know who they were now.
It's lightning in the bottle. But that's what I like. I like so much about being part of a community, having community. Is when something like that does happen, it brings that whole extra level of engagement, of connectedness. That's not a word. To people who put their hearts and souls into entertaining people, because that's really what they do, right? It's they love video games, but turning that into something everybody can enjoy is something unique, and having that extra level of care, I think, by having community, that just means so much more when you have good people to support you. So my favorite piece of content is probably Movies with Mikey on Arrival, that movie.
Oh yeah, that's such a good one.
And when I had him on the show, I told him like, oh, that's one of my favorite episodes, and what I didn't know then was that was one of the hardest episodes for him to do because he just got back from the hospital, and that just is, like, shows what a talented guy that is and how much drive he has to. He said, like, he had to push his mouse. I don't know. He tells it much better than I can, but to be that low and make a piece of content that I still remember months after, and I've only watched it once or twice because I made the mistake of watching it at work, and I was like, I need to go for a walk.
Yeah, I have goosebumps when you're talking about it. Like, it's like, seriously, his work is just that one. And he gets really emotional about the Amelie one too. And again, just a guy who, like, pours himself into what he's doing. He's like, he's such an amazing content creator that I will not have ever watched a movie that he'll put a video out on, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the impact it has. I'm like, well, I never really got that much into, like, Harry Potter. Somehow that just passed me by. But, he did the Prisoner of Azkaban one, and I was like, I got to watch this. And it was amazing. Yeah. And, having, and I make a point of, like, if he does a video now, like, I'm not going to watch his video until I've gone and watched it myself.
I do the same. Yeah.
And I'm always amazed at the way his brain works because, like, I will watch it and go, that was really good. Yeah, like, definitely. And then he'll, like, show me all of this crazy stuff that I was not paying attention to, and draw your attention to all of these details and, like, how, like, things led up behind the scenes and how it was produced. And it's just, he puts so much work into it. And I like, that's another thing that I really like about good content creators. Even if people are supremely talented, I try and tend to reward somebody who also has, like, the work ethic to, like, put in the time to produce something like what he produces. And Easy Hours does the same thing. So
well, have you seen the Harry Potter trilogy that he did yet?
I haven't seen. I don't think I have seen all of those yet.
It's so good. It's like 3 episodes, and he covers all 7 movies or all
8
movies. It's the last series he did. This week I think he posted his favorite 5, which had a couple of movies that I hadn't seen yet from 2018. And I need to go see those movies because that dude can convince me that a movie that I thought was bad is actually good. It's not. What movie is that? The one with where the dude goes to space and, like, his kids grow up because he's in. What's the movie? What's the name? It's a Nolan.
It's Moon. Nolan.
No,
is it Moon?
No, it's.
They did a Moon episode.
Yeah. God, I can't think of the movie. With Matthew McConaughey.
Inception. Interstellar.
Interstellar, yeah. Like, I hated that movie. And then I watched the movie with Mikey on it, and I was like, okay, maybe it's good. I don't know. I'm just going to take his word for it because he clearly knows his shit.
You know what I wouldn't count on if I were you is any Batman versus Superman movies.
Mikey, if you're listening.
I had to do that one time. Yeah. I actually saw, to really throw a wrench in your Batman versus Superman fanhood, I think I saw... I don't know if it was recently, but I think it was. Like, Ben Shapiro had, like, a tweet that was just like, Batman vs Superman is a good movie. So I just want you to know you're in this.
God damn it!
You're in the same boat with Ben Shapiro now in terms of movie taste. Maybe that'll change your mind.
Just on the record, fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. That guy's shit.
I did a video on why Batman vs Superman is actually good. It's you know what? The only thing
I'm sure it took off.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was huge. That's the only dislikes I ever got on the video.
Oh, nice.
No, it's not true.
That's so funny. I'm sure most of them were. So most of those were sarcastic dislikes. By the way, I might have even been responsible for one.
You should have been. Hey man, that fight where Batman goes saves Martha. It's one of the best Batman scenes I've ever seen. If you're just listening, Hunter walked just off the show, but he's back.
All right. Did you get that out of your system?
Yeah, I got it out of my system.
You good to go now?
Well, you just wait when Mikey does a thing on Batman v Superman.
Sure.
And then
I'm holding my breath.
Yeah, it's like, the Gospel of Dragon's Dogma. At some point, everyone will see the light on what.
No, I actually am really. That's okay. So just so you know, you have a similar influence to Mike with that one. I have not played Dragon's Dogma before, and I've looked at it a little bit on the PS4, but I have the same problem so many people do when there's so many great games out. Is that my backlog is just insane. But the Switch is the exception to that because I will play the Switch while I'm like either in a boring conference call. Sorry, boss, if you end up watching this. Or just waiting at a doctor's office or something like that is what the Switch is so great about. And when I heard it was being released on that, I was like,
gotta get it.
I'm gonna get that. And I would not have done that had you not lobbied for it so hard.
Force-fed everybody my love for Dragon's Dogma.
But I love see that should let you know that it's not just people giving you a hard time about Batman versus Superman. That is legitimately a bad movie. But I'm excited about Dragon's Dogma. I want to give that a try.
Legitimately the best game in the world. Stephen Blomkamp linked me a video from Matt Lees, who used to do great videos. He used to do like press conferences abridged. I'm not sure if you remember him, but British guy, funny hair. He has a love letter to Dragon's Dogma as well. It's just a fantastic game. And I got to sneak in Dragon's Dogma talk on my own show, which is always
it sounds right up my alley. I mean, I'm surprised it passed me by the first time. I like games like that, and it sounds like it's got good combat too, which is definitely
it's the best combat.
That's a big plus for me. Is I know you streamed a little bit of it before. I watched maybe a speed run or two, but then you were actually legit doing like a playthrough of it.
I didn't finish it.
And I'll tell you, that is one of the things that other people get to do that I just do not get to do. I do not have time. If I have time to sit down and watch somebody play through a full video game,
no,
I'm just going to go play a full video game because I don't have enough time to do that on my own as to watch somebody else when I could just go play it.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I never watch streams unless it's someone I know and I drop in, say hi, maybe like 2 seconds. But like I rather go play myself. But hey, man, it's a market.
Group stream. Yeah, I watch group streams if they're like playing competitively. That's kind of fun because it's more about their personal interactions. But I think the room is going. Forgot to turn that thing off.
That's okay. Can't hear it. We're all good. No, that's true.
You want to see a dog? Pup.
Yes, that's the best part of content.
We gotta do pets. Come here, pup. Come here.
Oh, look at that.
Here's Sydney. That's Hank back there. Hank is the jealous puppy who does not like when Sydney gets pet. All right, come here, Hank. Come here.
This is gonna be the clip out. I never do clip outs. I should do clip outs. That's great.
Anyway,
but Hunter, I really appreciate. Like I said before, everything you do, but I also really appreciate talking to you for an hour. Now you riled them up.
That's my fault. Hold on. You go outside. Come on, outside. You can clip that out if you want.
No, that's okay. It is genuine.
That was totally my fault.
Yeah. Hey, man, if I get dogs on the show, then the views just view themselves. No, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I figured I would give you that added boost.
That's right.
It's not a cat, but Yeah.
We got cats on the show. We had Elbas on the show, I think. But it was great to just, like, we talk every now and then when we play Destiny together. But to do this a little bit more interview style has been a delight. And like I said before, I think the only way we can make communities better is to highlight the good. Because it's very easy to only see the shitholes that also float to the top, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I like doing this to just pick out some people and show them why it's so important to have them in our groups and in our communities. So thank you for making the time to come on the show. I am gonna ask you to promote yourself because maybe you can make some other podcast appearances because you're very pleasant to talk to.
Yeah, I definitely like doing this kind of stuff. I don't really have a whole lot to shill unless people, need some kind of like HR consulting work. But yeah, I mean, my Twitter is. See, this is the thing. I don't even tell people so much. I barely remember what it is. I think it's @JHunterPearson.
It is.
Is my Twitter handle, and that's pretty much the only place that you're going to find me is there or on Patreon, following you and Easy Allies and Mikey and a few others. But if somebody wants to follow me, that's great. I get a lot of Twitter followers like spontaneously because I'll say something they like politically, and then they're gone after they get like 3 straight days of me just talking video games.
Yeah.
But
I have that too. You make one political tweet that goes viral, and then you get a boost, and then they all leave and
Right.
then take their friends with them. But,
Yep. That's okay. I'm not worried about Twitter followers too
Nah.
much. I like the people who I communicate with, and if
Yeah.
other people come along that are nice, then I'll like that too.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You are a community superstar after all. Well, again, thanks so much. And I should also shill for myself, but you already listened to the show, so I am just gonna tell you where to find me in case you accidentally click this. I am the Hashtagonist, and you can find me at the Hashtagonist as well, where you get all your news and nonsense on my Twitter feed and links to the show. And we'll be back again next week with another cool guest that I have not booked yet, but we'll manage to surprise everybody. Hunter, again, thanks so much. And if you're still listening to me trying to close this show, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.